Hi everyone, it's Ellie Alexander. I'm so excited to have you with me for a special episode of the Torte Test Kitchen. We're not going to bake this week, but we are going to talk all things Bundt. It's going to be Bundt-alicious, so stay tuned as I introduce you to the bros. That's right, the Bros That Bundt. Okay, I'm here with the Bros That Bundt, and my very first question is, who are the bros? First of all, one of you doesn't look exactly bro-ish, so I want to know about that. Am I revealing too many secrets?
No, very observant, yes. So I am probably not a typical description of a bro, but all four of us met in graduate school. And I would say that our lab was predominantly male at the time. And I think that sort of the bro-y vibe started more as a joke, and it was more just a fun energy that was within the group that we had. And bro has no gender for us, so we're very bro-clusive. Anyone is welcome. And we just are having a good time making bunts.
I love it. Bro-clusive needs to be part of our vernacular as a culture, yeah, I think. Absolutely.
That's right. Yep.
Okay, so you touched on this a little bit, but why Bundts? I mean, I understand like the idea of you're all in grad school and you're kind of growing out together, but why Bundts in particular?
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole Bundt thing actually started after we had left graduate school. And it started with something that was called the Bundt of the Month Club, hosted by like Nordic Ware and Bake from Scratch magazine. And, we just decided that it'd be kind of a fun thing to do together. And so we started making bunts. And then eventually the thought was maybe we should make, an account and post these things for people to see. And, stuff kind of went from there. And we had a lot of fun doing this on our own, and it's definitely been fun getting others involved too. I think it's been it's been enjoyable for sure. And again, it's a great way for us to kind of mingle again, being literally all over the country at this point. So it's been nice.
So you're not bunting together, you're bunting apart, and then
Correct.
You collaborate together.
Mm-hmm.
How is that process? So like in some ways, being on Zoom is not new for all of you.
No, it's not. No.
Yeah.
Been doing Zoom collaboration for most of the year, from various levels for planning or sharing ideas or who's figuring out who's going to post when. We've been talking more together now than we have in a long time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you might even say that Bundts have brought you together.
That's right.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, you could definitely say that.
We've definitely bonded over Bunts.
Bonded over. We could go on with puns all night long. You're speaking my language right now. But I have to say to any readers out there, if you are not on Instagram, you should get an Instagram account just to follow the bros, because the way they bunt is amazing. It is like my vision in my head of what Jules and Helen would create at the bake shop in real bunting life. It's amazing. It's true. How did you come to master the Bundt? Because I have to tell you, one question I get repeatedly from readers is that they are terrified of bunts. They can't get bunts out of the pan. Like the Bundt pan in general is just, it's murderous basically. So how did you master the Bundt itself?
I would say the major key to success of the Bundt is the flour spray. So it's the baking spray with flour, and you spray that thing real good. There's real good. There's definitely
no such thing as too much spray.
Yeah. And I would also, to any of your readers that fear the Bundt, we've all had our Bundt fails. I know when we first started, one of the first Bundts of the month, I couldn't get out of the pan, and you Google all the different ways. Like, oh, you should make a steam bath for your Bundt. You should do X, Y, Z for your Bundt. None of that works.
Yeah.
You just got to commit to the spray. I would say that's that's the one major takeaway, to sort of get it out of the pan and looking nice and reflecting the pattern that's actually there.
And I think there's a sweet.
Oh, so go for it, John.
Oh yeah, there's a sweet spot once you get it out of the oven. You let it sit in the pan for about 10 or 15 minutes, and then you turn it out. But if you go too fast and you try to take the Bundt out of the pan when it's still hot, it'll fall apart. Or if you let it cool completely in the pan, it'll stick to the pan, and then you'll have trouble getting that out again too.
Yeah, 10 to 15 minutes is definitely the sweet spot. And having a good pan is also very helpful. I mean, all of our pans are Nordic ware, I think, to shout them out. And having like a good, you know, if you use like a thinner pan, it cooks differently, and it sticks, and like it gets too hot on the edges. And so having a good pan is pretty solid.
I love that. And maybe a baking kitty with you. You should never push a cat off a lap in a Zoom call with me, because
He's back.
He's back. Okay. Yeah, he needs his time in the spotlight. Okay, so obviously you have practiced with Bundts. How many Bundts do you think you have made collectively in this experiment of becoming the Bros?
Sam and Victoria, how many Bundts have you guys made recently?
Yeah, are we counting only full-size Bundts or also mini Bundts?
I think all Bundts are on the table for this.
Oh. A lot.
See, if we go to our Instagram, we can see how many posts we have.
Yeah, plus some extras, and
yeah, plus a few extras. We have 116 posts.
Ooh.
So at least that many Bundts.
At least 116 that have been shown to the public.
Yeah,
that doesn't
pretty
include all
ones.
all the behind the scenes.
But Victoria and I, we put together there was a bake sale for Bakers Against Racism going on last weekend. That was like countrywide or worldwide, I guess. And so we made a bunch of mini Bundts in San Francisco. So we made like close to 300 mini Bundts in one day between the two of us, which was definitely an experience. It was like working in a bake shop for sure. Being on your feet all day and Bundt after Bundt after Bundt after Bundt. It was fun.
Yeah,
it was very fun.
For such an important cause, did you want to murder the Bundts by the end of the day, though?
You know, I have to say it went very, very smoothly. We had very few Bundt catastrophes. So, you know, there's other Bundts that I wanted to murder more than the mini Bundts for sure.
Yeah, you guys killed it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. We had the same thing here, and my favorite local bakery that's the inspiration for the series did the same thing. So I didn't actually bake, but I ordered. So I feel like, you know, it's the same.
Yeah.
Even better. Yep. Even better.
I just reaped the pleasures of someone else's Bundt. So you are all scientists by trade. How do you think that factors into baking for you? I'm always fascinated by that because I am not a professional baker. I say this all the time to readers. I like to pretend to play one in the pages of my Bakeshop Mysteries. But I've learned little tidbits from professional bakers over the years, many of whom seem like they have an element of a scientific background. So I'm curious how that plays out for you.
None of us are professional bakers. You know, we're all self-taught and have kind of figured things out along the way through trial and error. I think the science background and the chemistry background, you know, we were in an environment where we were making chemicals, making compounds. And to do that, you have to learn how to measure things very carefully, to follow instructions very carefully, to combine things in a certain order at a certain temperature and a certain time. And in the lab, it's not quite as fun as in the kitchen. You don't get to eat as much stuff. And I think a lot of us kind of carry that mindset back home with us. And, you know, like Victoria and I, we no longer do bench chemistry. We're no longer in a lab. And so it's a way to still practice some of those same skills without being in that environment. But I definitely think some of that attention to detail, being able to follow, you know, a complex recipe or a lab procedure, it goes hand in hand with each other.
And patience.
And patience.
Patience. Well, on that note, are your Bundt fails, the disasters that you've had in the kitchen, are they quite on par with disasters in the chem lab back in the day?
I think we get equally as frustrated by our Bundt fails, but I would say that the danger level is much lower. You know, John and I had some, I think we've all had near misses in the lab for sure. John and I have had we worked very closely together through a lot of grad school. And so we had some collective near misses. One particular one, we were working with this compound that reacts with water in the air. And we were working with it in our hood, following all the safety precautions in our lab codes, with the hood down, safety glasses, et cetera. And then it lit on, we were putting solvent in it, lit on fire and kind of blew the solvent everywhere. And then the solvent was on fire everywhere. And we very calmly put the hood down. You know, we're like, okay, what do we do? And so we, and you know, I think we were so proud because nobody even knew that we had started a fire. We were so calm about it.
Yeah, we were both flustered, you know, from like the scrape with danger and looking around, and everyone else was just calmly going about their business, doing work. No one noticed. We
were like, okay. But at least for baking fails, when the Bundt fails come out of the pan, at least it still tastes good.
That's right.
That's true. That's very true.
I've had some Bundt disasters but you know, you can still eat it with a fork.
And really the moral of the story here is just act calm in the face of danger and
that's right.
You'll be fine.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Just got to stay chill in the kitchen and in the lab.
That is words of wisdom right there. Stay chill.
Bro wisdom.
Bro
wisdom. You're dishing it out. Okay, so I reached out to you, the bros, because I had been drooling over your Instagram for quite a while. And when I knew that Nothing Bundt Trouble was coming out, I wanted to do something fun and creative in terms of collaborating together. So I approached you and said, hey, do you maybe want to bake a Bundt? And then you have taken it to an entirely, completely different level that I never imagined. But what was your reaction to partnering with something like this?
Oh, we were stoked. I mean, when we got your email, so yeah, as I think we sort of alluded to, we really didn't start this Instagram until BakeFeed had launched that Bundt of the Month. So we just hit a year on Instagram in January. And you know, we've been really, you know, fortunate with the following that we've gotten, but to have you reach out to us for something that was so exciting for us to participate in. And then we looked up your books and it was all like, oh, this is really fun. And we wanted to read it. I think overall we were super excited. And then once we got to speak with you and sort of talk through a plan, we were all, you know, running with ideas of different Bundts to make. And I think it was all just very exciting for us.
I love that. And we went from 1 Bundt to 5 Bundts. So let's talk a little bit about like, how did that process go? Because that wasn't even in like my line of thinking initially.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we talked to you, I can't remember where the idea came from, but that because the book is 80s themed, as you can tell from the cover, when we started like talking about ideas and trying to figure out what desserts were popular in the 80s, there were so many ideas that we didn't feel like making one was the way to go. And we're all looking for an excuse to make more Bundts.
That's right.
Plus there's 4 of us, so you know, we would have all been jealous if we only had 1 Bundt to make.
Yep.
So I think also we've found, since there is 4 of us, we've sort of enjoyed making themed type weeks. So we've done that with a couple other types of baked goods. So for example, we did like a Girl Scout series. So there were a number of Bundts in a similar theme. So when you shared your book with us, and as Sam mentioned, you know, we saw this potential for an 80s theme, which I think lended itself to multiple Bundts as well.
That's the best. Well, and I love that you're a year plus now into your Instagram page and you're still looking for ways and excuses to make a Bundt. That's always a good sign.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I thought it would be fun because some readers have probably already seen your amazingly talented 80s awesomeness, but some have not. So I thought we should go through each Bundt and have a little like Bundt recap of what you baked. Okay, so first up we have John's Jell-O mold. I can't even with this Bundt. I just can't.
Yeah, this was an interesting challenge. So when we had first started talking about the Bundt opportunities, and we're kind of trying to find ideas of what sort of cakes would be popular in the 80s, the first person I reached out to was my mom to kind of see what ideas that she had. And the raspberry halo mold, or the Jello mold cake, was definitely one of the big things that we talked about. And so what I actually did, I found a recipe for this, and it's a Jello recipe. It's a picture I found on the internet from that time period. It contains no fresh ingredients.
Which means obviously it's the best Bundt of all.
We were all kind of skeptical. I'm not going to lie. We were kind of skeptical, my wife and I, and we had a lot of fun taking the pictures, and we're trying to contain ourselves from trying it before we were done taking the pictures. And finally we got far enough along where we could taste it. And it actually tastes really good. It's very sweet. There's a lot of sugar in it, but it was a pretty
light
neat
source.
It's kind of
So my first question is, will you ever bake a Jello mold again, or is one enough?
I think one was probably good. One was probably good.
So you get invited to an 80s themed party.
That's true. Yeah, like I said, it wasn't bad. There's a lot of other things to try, but I think just based off of how sweet it was a lot to take in.
Did you learn anything in the process of a retro throwback with Jello? Especially the science. What's the science behind Jello? That's what I want to know. Why does it mold?
That's a good question. You do have to get it up to a certain temperature to dissolve, and then as it starts cooling down, it coagulates and starts to firm up. And that was part of the trick for getting it to take the right consistency, because you don't want to add the rest of the suspended ingredients to it while it's too warm. Otherwise, they'll all drift down to the bottom. So I had prepared the Jello and had it cooling in the refrigerator, but kept coming back to check it to make sure that it was the right consistency. And that was something that I wasn't sure I had gotten right until the very end. Because you fold in some whipped cream, you add the bits of cake and the marshmallow to it. So it was a little bit more complicated than I thought it was going to be, but it still was. In the end, I think it's fairly foolproof.
Okay, we're gonna have to ask readers. I'm gonna have to put this out to everyone. Bake a Jello Bundt at home and report back, right?
Tag the bros.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Tag the bros.
show us your buns. We love seeing everyone's creation.
That is definitely going to be part of our call to action. Okay, so next up we have a pineapple upside down Bundt from Sam. I have to say that when I was researching 80s desserts, which that's a rabbit hole in and of itself, I learned that pineapple upside down cake was the most popular dessert of the decade.
Yeah, I was also very surprised. Everyone we asked, like, that was like the first thing that they said. And I was like, oh, I had no idea. But I had never made a pineapple upside down cake before. And I've heard of like fruit upside down fruit cakes. And they always seemed like a challenge because, like, you cook fruit and then it gets sticky and it sticks to the pan. And especially in a Bundt where it's like, not really like, in like a flat cake pan, it's a little bit easier to deal with, but in a Bundt where it's not really flat and you got these molds, like, is it going to stay? And so first of all, we decided that we should make it in a mini pan because it perfectly fits a little pineapple.
And I'm so glad you did, because it's the cutest thing ever.
Yes, it's very cute. Yeah, they came out very well. And it turns out, when at the bottom you put in melted butter and brown sugar is like the little glob at the bottom. Then you put the pineapple on. We sprayed the mini pans, put that in, and then turns out the butter and brown sugar does its job and keep the pineapple from sticking. Came out super well. Just tasted delicious. I mean, you can't go wrong with butter and brown sugar just covering anything. What else could you possibly want?
Now, when I made a pineapple upside down cake, I didn't attempt it in a Bundt, but I was surprised because the cake itself doesn't really have a lot in it. Was that true for your recipe?
Yeah, it's like a pretty simple, like, kind of yellow cake recipe. So you get a lot of the like citrus flavor from the pineapple. I think goes well. It's surprisingly because it like kind of caramelizes, and so the pineapple goes really well with like it like seeps into the cake. So you get the flavor from the pineapple in the cake as well.
So what were your thoughts? Would you bake this again, or is
it was quite good. I would definitely make it again, and I would probably stick with the minis because it was much easier than trying to do it in like a pan where you got to lay them around and get them to fit right. They fit perfectly over the little hole in the Bundt pan. It was made to be like that.
And on the spectrum of cherry in the center to no cherry, clearly you fall in the category of cherry.
You know, for the pictures, the cherries are aesthetically very pleasing. For my taste buds, I'm not into the maraschino cherries.
Oh,
Not my thing. But for the picture, you know, you got to have the red in there. Otherwise, it's not a real pineapple upside down cake.
It's so true. So fun fact, I went to the University of Oregon, go Ducks, but our rivals, Oregon State, are known for the fact that the maraschino cherry was invented there.
Really? In a chemistry lab?
Definitely in the chem lab. And I just feel like I can't eat them because it's my rival. So
you can't support the rival.
No, I can't do it. Okay, next up we have the Ding Dong Bundt. Oh my goodness. This has to be one of the harder bunts, I've got to say.
This one provided its own set of challenges. So I think the first question when we brought up the idea of the ding dong cake was, okay, how are we gonna get the marshmallow in the center? And do you sort of inject into the cake? Do you bake with the marshmallow in it? Do you do it after the fact? And so I did a good bit of research, and what I ended up doing was you bake the cake, you make the marshmallow component separately, and you actually cut out a tunnel once the cake is baked, and then you fill it with the marshmallow and you put that piece back on. So that's how you get it so it still has that nice marshmallowy consistency, and you don't bake it into the cake. And I think it much more resembles the actual ding dong that we're all used to from Hostess.
So Victoria, before you made this, had you ever had a ding dong?
So that's a funny question. So I am familiar with Hostess things, but I kept calling the ding dong a ring ding for I think almost the entire time I was making it. And then when I went to the grocery store, I was blown away by how many Hostess or variety of Hostess things that there are. So I think I had mistakenly said that I had a ring ding before, but now I can say that I have had one.
And what was your impression of the original?
You know, the ratio of the ring ding sort of cake to marshmallow it's off a little bit. I guess I expected more because I was thinking more of like a Hostess cupcake. But I can't complain. I mean, it's sugary, chocolatey. It's got a little bit of marshmallow.
What I want to know is my memory of a ding dong from childhood is that the middle filling was really like creamy. And when I tried one as an adult, when I was working on this book and I wanted to create a recipe that kind of idolized or memorialized the ding dong, the center was very chemically. So I'm curious, from your chemistry background, is your palate as able to discern chemicals?
So I would definitely say there's a processed taste, or I would say that there's definitely, you know, that it wasn't made in your mom's kitchen, for example.
Right. There you go.
Yeah, definitely not the freshest thing. And it wouldn't be my first choice to go eat it. I think I'd prefer to go and make it again as a Bundt cake.
Absolutely. I know, because your Bundt looks beautiful and delicious and fresh. How was the taste of the Bundt that you made?
This Bundt came out really well. So actually I took two separate recipes and brought them together to make this. So the chocolate cake is from Martha Stewart. So you really, most of the time, you can't go wrong with the Martha. Yeah, with the Martha recipe. So the cake was solid. It's like a nice devil's food cake. And then I looked up a couple different ways to make marshmallow. And really, I mean, it's sugar and egg whites, and you just beat it for a good amount of time. It came out pretty good. I was happy with it.
I love it. And a nice layer of thick ganache on the top.
Oh, yes. Yes. The ganache recipe actually, I think at this point, I think we talk about this a good bit. I don't even have recipes for frostings or icings and ganaches. It's just like, okay, I want something this thick. You start throwing chocolate in, you start throwing the cream in until you get to the consistency that you want.
That's a true baker at heart. I think you've elevated yourself. And I think we can all agree that just from that, you have reinvented the ding dong. Like everybody needs this ding dong in their life. 100%.
Yes, I would definitely. Yes.
Okay, we're going to move on to the donut Bundt. Dun, dun, dun. Ethan, this is a work of art. I can't believe how great this is.
Yeah, I was definitely pretty happy with how it turned out. It's very, very photogenic for sure.
So there's a donut on the cover of the book, obviously, which we can kind of see in the background. How did you decide to recreate like the donut concept in Bundt form?
Well, I don't know. It may or may not surprise you or the readers, but there's actually quite a few different donut type Bundt recipes. So people have, done all sorts of things to try and emulate kind of the classic donut look or feel in different ways. So this recipe, uses kind of a, fairly standard type of white cake mix that you might find for like a white pound cake. But yeah, the key is definitely getting the glaze on top to be, not too thick, but then not too runny. So, I ended up doing a bit of similar to what Victoria did, where, you start with kind of a basic amount, and I just kept doing some powdered sugar and stirring it up until it seemed like this will probably do it. And then you just got to go for it at a certain point. Because it would have been hard to undo any mistakes on this.
How did it taste? Like, did it feel like a donut?
Maybe, I don't want to spoil it. Not necessarily, no. But at least for me, when I think of donuts, there are cake donuts, so it is a little more like that for sure, certainly in texture and consistency. But the flavor is, all out pound cake for sure.
Cake all the way. It's fair.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, fried bunts for next time.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I thought about trying to look into something where if you could like bake it a little bit and then maybe do like a fry or like a crisping. I didn't really find anything and I didn't want to try it, but it could be fun. Or a disaster, those are the options. Fun or a disaster.
Those are the best options though, really.
Yeah.
Okay, and then last but not least, we have the piece de resistance, the murder Bundt is what we're calling it, right?
The murder Bundt.
The murder Bundt. I said, when did you ever think you would be asked to bake a murder Bundt?
Definitely never. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. No, this was good. I mean, we tried to emulate what's on the cover. And it turns out that a poke cake is a thing that I had never heard of.
Another Jell-O themed bake.
Yeah, another Jell-O. Yeah, Jell-O was big in the 80s, it seems like. Yeah. You bake a Bundt, you poke a bunch of holes in it, and you pour some very hot Jell-O on top until it soaks in, cool it down, and then you get some nice little Jell-O veins running through it. And this one's topped with Cool Whip, which is also an 80s topping, I think. And we had to go for the full effect with the edible, although not that delicious, fake blood. I did try it. It does not. It's just sugar, pretty much. Yeah.
I think we were all very excited when you first asked us for this and you showed us the cover of the book. It was like, how do we make a bun that bleeds?
Yeah.
I think that's a question many bakers at home are asking themselves right now. How?
How can we murder a Bundt?
How could we murder a Bundt? That's right. I love it. It's perfection. And, you know, I got to say the Jell-O and the Cool Whip, if we modernize that, maybe with some fresh hand whipped cream and a thin raspberry ganache, we could modernize it and make it less 80s.
Oh yeah. Although I have to say that between the white cake, it's like a little like almondy, and then the raspberry is just a raspberry Jell-O. You know, you got to get the exact flavors from Jell-O company. The raspberry and like the cake actually went pretty well together. I was pleasantly surprised.
I love it. Well done. Those are some amazing Bundts.
Yeah, I think we're all very pleased with how they came out.
Yeah.
As you should
Definitely.
be. All right, now that we've seen your amazing Bundt talent, I am going to throw an unprepared chemistry question your way. Yeah, so you might want to take a deep breath. This is like hard-hitting science right here.
Is this open book?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. It's fair. Okay, so I made this little baby Bundt, okay?
Mm-hmm.
It's a chocolate chip delight. I actually made a collection of 3 beautiful
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
baby Bundts, right? Okay, but here's my question. When one is baking a Bundt with chocolate chips, I, back in the day, had many baking fails because I would make a batter and dump the chocolate chips in, and then all of the chocolate chips sink to the bottom of the Bundt, and you have this gross, like sludgy chocolate on the bottom. And then a professional baker said to me, no, the trick is you roll the chocolate chips in flour, and then magically they are like this through the Bundt. How? What is the science behind this magic? I must know. Uh-oh. Silence.
Victoria, do you want to go over this one?
Yeah,
I feel like
I know we've gone over this before, actually.
Well, so,
Do you know this?
well, no, so we've talked about it in the context of blueberries, but in a similar vein, because I think a lot of our followers actually have mentioned like, oh, my blueberries fall to the bottom or something else falls to the bottom. And so I know personally I'll roll them in cornstarch, or flour will do a similar thing. I mean, and you can all jump in, but I think it has to do with like the relative densities of the things that you're dropping into the batter. And also it has to do with I believe when I think about the blueberries, I think about the moisture that's in the blueberries as well. So tossing them in the flour, I guess chocolate chips would be similar because they would be melting. But so, because chocolate chips throw me a little bit over the blueberries because there's not the moisture, which is what I always sort of thought with the blueberries, because there's that moisture and then they start, so if they're covered in something, sort of helps them obtain the moisture, or the flour or the cornstarch obtain the moisture of the blueberry as it's baking.
Interesting. Do you think too that getting flour around blueberries or even like a melty chocolate chip creates some sort of little gluten net that
like micelle?
Like a gluten micelle that would like hold it in place in like the rest of the flour structure? Or pro-gluten?
Pro-gluten, yeah.
I really want to take a note to be like, say that again, because that needs to find its way into a book. A gluten what?
Gluten net.
Yeah.
Like all those protein strands come together, and if it's something that's kind of encased around the whatever tidbit you're adding in, and then it's kind of interconnecting with the rest of the gluten network in the cake or the batter, it could help hold it in place.
Sure.
And you're right, Victoria, it could be a moisture thing, because we have learned recently that chocolate can have too much water, and when you heat it up, it like definitely separates from the fat. And so if maybe as the chocolate melts, normally the water leaks out, and so then it starts to sink. But when you keep when you toss it in flour, it keeps the moisture in.
I don't know if that's the actual reason, but
that's our hypothesis.
That's how I rationalized it for the blueberries.
We've had similar experiences with things sinking.
For sure.
Okay, so we all heard it here from the Bundt Bros. Toss in flour, create your gluten net. That's totally going in a book. And it will all turn out fine. No soggy bottoms.
No soggy.
No soggy
Soggy
bottom.
bottoms.
Never.
And in a Bundt, the soggy bottom turns into the top, so that's real bad.
Right, that's
Oh,
right.
yeah.
Soggy tops are way worse than soggy bottoms.
That's true.
You can kind of hide a soggy bottom. You can't, at least in a picture, you can't hide a soggy top.
Okay, we're gonna go into what I call the speed round. So like my hard-hitting science question, these are really intense. So if anyone needs to, do a yoga pose, meditate for a second, I will only accept one-word answers, and I'll call out your name. You answer first thing that comes out of your mouth. Okay. Are you nervous?
Yes.
A little bit.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, Ethan's good. You're
We've
solid.
had some
Okay.
intense grad school experiences, but I feel like this is on par.
Okay, yeah. It's really on par with that. Yeah. Chemistry,
Close. Yeah.
grad school, or cozy mystery baking. Totally the same. Okay, question number 1. What's the best murder weapon in the chem lab? Jonathan.
Potassium chloride.
Victoria.
Graduated cylinder.
Ethan.
I mean, it's got to be cyanide, right?
Oh my god.
Oh.
For chemicals.
Sam.
Pyrophorics if you're not trying to hide it.
Ooh.
Oh my gosh, you guys all picked chemicals. I'm like, I'm gonna go shank someone with a.
I like that spirit. It's really in the tone of our murder Bundt, right? Yeah. Okay, well done. Okay, question number 2. Frosting or Bundt naked? Sam.
Oh, frosting.
Ethan.
I think you meant glaze.
Victoria.
Naked.
Mm-hmm. And Jonathan.
Frosted.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I sense some disagreement in that one.
You should see our group chats when we disagree on things. Then the messages just flow.
So many GIFs.
Yes, it's all. Yeah, we all communicate in GIFs.
or gifts.
Oh
man.
There it is.
We're gonna get.
Okay, this one's important. Book or movie? Ethan.
Movie.
Oh, Sam.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Book, I think.
I think. Victoria, come on.
Book.
Thank you. Jonathan.
Book.
Oh, okay.
For sure.
That you learned from
okay.
your counterparts? Yeah, so.
Definitely book. Yeah, that's it.
Definitely book. Okay, good. Right, correct answer. Question number 4. The best Bundt ever. Victoria.
Oh, this pumpkin mascarpone one from the Bake Feed. If
Oh,
anyone
yeah.
has not made a Bundt before, and and you don't have to it's not basic pumpkin. It is like next level. The cake is fantastic. This is not a one-word answer, but it deserves more than one word. That's the best one.
Jonathan.
We just made an upside down peach bourbon bun cake for Father's Day, and that was next level. That was very good.
Yum. Sam.
The Bake Feed also has a churro bun cake with a chocolate dipping sauce. It is very good.
I gotta break my own one-word rule here on that. So is it like a crunchy? Is it churro style cake?
You cover it in cinnamon sugar.
Mm.
Yeah, and it has like some cinnamon and some other spices, and the chocolate has some spices in it. It's very good.
Nice. And last but not least, Ethan.
And I was gonna say the pumpkin one, and then I was gonna go with the churro one. But if we're gonna go for a third one, I think a red velvet one that we did with a little cream cheese tunnel inside. That was very good.
Now I need more Bundt in my life. Okay, and the final hard-hitting question is Bundts pair perfectly with Ethan?
I'd have to say coffee.
Jonathan?
I was also going to say coffee, but I'll take ice cream.
Sam?
Coffee for sure.
Victoria?
I would also say coffee.
Oh, all right. Okay. So
Well,
coffee it
drinkers.
is.
Especially in the
Let's see those mugs.
Yep.
I love it.
Victoria.
My mug's in my cabinet.
I have had so much fun collaborating with you all on this project, especially getting to know you a little bit through our Zooms like this. And I think one of the things that I try to weave into my writing is this idea of community and connection in the kitchen and in the bake shop. That's fictional, of course, in my world. But one of the things that seems to have come through for me is that you all bake in that spirit. You have this sense of community and sharing and a real love and joy of baking, and that comes through. I'm curious, is there something completely unexpected about this endeavor that has come to you after a year plus of baking Bundts together?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is having murder-themed mystery Bundts and having an author reach out to us for Bundt inspiration to promote a book. Definitely not something we saw on the horizon.
Having people want our Bundts that aren't just our lab mates that, get the scraps when we're done with them anyways. No, I was going to say just the baking community in general. Like we've made a lot of we've built a lot of relationships with other bakers via Instagram. And I think that was very surprising at how everybody's very supportive of everybody else, and everyone enjoys looking at each other's pictures and following each other's recipes. I think that was a surprise for me, for sure.
Yeah, no, I would just echo what Sam said. I think even just in a more general sense, I think the whole Bros sort of experience that we've had was unexpected. I don't think any of us expected people to actually want to look at our Bundts. We started it very much as I think, we mentioned in the beginning, as a way for us to stay connected. And, we were like, okay, if we're going to make all these Bundts, we should post them, we should share them, but not really expecting them to get the response that they did. And I think, that was really surprising, but has made it even more enjoyable for us to keep going with.
Yeah, and I guess too, the last thing again kind of echoes into the community aspect of, I think of we mentioned it earlier too, the Bakers Against, Racism cause, if you want to think of it that way. I mean, that mobilized very quickly and was global. And I mean, in the end, bakers across the world ended up raising, over $1 million to donate to various charities and things. And so, it's pretty inspirational, I think. And again, kind of emulates the sort of community aspect of what baking in general can do. With almost like a family of bakers kind of thing, or just people all over willing to drop whatever they had planned and kind of push to help their fellow humans as best as you can.
I love it. I always use that line, "Bake the better place," in my books, and it's true. I think we can change the world in our own little tiny way, and that's awesome. What is next for the Bros? What do you want readers to know? What's on the horizon for you and your Bundts?
So I think what's coming up next for us, we talk about a bunch of different things, and one of them is really sort of venturing into our own recipes. That's something we talk about a lot, and we're still working out how to do that, because we don't want to, we want to share recipes and be confident in them from our own perspective, but also have things that people want to make. I think that's a next potential step for us, still very much figuring out how we would go about doing that. And I think it helps that there's 4 of us, because as we develop recipes, testing is a bit easier. But I think that's a really great potential next step for us, since we do mostly just bake others' recipes right now. As much as we do enjoy doing that, I think that would be a nice area for us to grow into. We've talked, about different pieces of merchandise as John drinks out of his coffee mug. So we had made those sort of as as a test run to sort of see as we were building this logo. So I think that's something new for us as well that we'd like to share and see, if people, want to bro down and bunt up with us, they can do it drinking their coffee out of a mug, one of the broy mugs. I think those are two things that I think of right off the bat. What do you guys think?
Yeah, and I think as we work on those things, we'll continue to bring like similar content that we've done before. We'll continue to have themed weeks and to celebrate different holidays. Before this conversation, we were making plans for 4th of July. We have been thinking of ways to otherwise elevate bunts, such as maybe cocktail themed bunts.
Yeah.
A hit for the summer months. So I think we'll continue to bring the content that people have resonated with so far too.
Can you imagine yourselves ever breaking out of the Bundt? Are you all in for the Bundt?
Oh, that is a hard-hitting question,
I know.
Ellie.
I warned you.
That's the toughest one yet. I think, and boys, please jump in. We go back and we've gone back and forth with this several times. There's a strong loyalty to the Bundt, and we do love the Bundt, and we've fallen into this niche, and I think that people do enjoy seeing the different ways that we make bunts, and we've interpreted other cakes or other types of desserts, just like we did for for the book into bunts. So I think that makes it sort of hard to separate from or to sort of go off into other baked goods. But that being said, we all do very much enjoy baking other things. So it is something that we go back and forth with.
For sure.
It's a very controversial topic.
It is. And the fact that we all have like 10 plus Bundt pans means we should probably use them.
Critical mass.
Half my kitchen cabinet is Bundt pans. Jonathan uses his wall decoration.
I say go all in on the bunts. You're crushing them already. So, okay. And my last question before we go, well, actually I have 2 questions before we go. My second to last question is, do you have like a dream celebrity that you would just like die to bake a Bundt for? Who's your Bundt crush?
Dwayne Johnson. Oh yeah.
A baking celebrity or any celebrity? We love
everyone's on the table.
We love The Rock.
We love The Rock.
We do love The Rock.
Victoria made him. Yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
Those are from grad school.
Yep.
Victoria made a margarita Bundt with The Rock's tequila.
Oh, that's right.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's right.
So really, that was for him.
It was.
Okay.
He didn't see it.
Okay,
Try
Rock.
harder.
The Rock.
Didn't commission.
Go follow the bros.
Yeah.
And come on, Dwayne.
Dwayne, you're out there.
We've seen all your movies.
Yeah.
We can.
Come see all our Bundts.
We smell what you're cooking. I know Chrissy Teigen is another one that has been a cooking and baking inspiration for us. Kind of in and around this.
And there's some other like Instagram bakers that we all follow and like love their recipes.
Yeah.
Cloudy Kitchen is one.
Love Cloudy Kitchen.
Yep.
Her recipes are great. She has recipes for everything. They're all real good. Erin Clarkson is her actual name. She's got recipe books and stuff.
Yeah.
Our boy Brian Hart Hoffman from the Bake Feed.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Of course. He's an OG bro for sure.
Yeah.
And then, is there anything that you want readers to know about following you, finding you? I'm going to share links for everybody below. We're also going to announce a giveaway in this post, so be sure that you look below when that's live. But they can follow you on Instagram at the Bros That Bundt.
That's right. Yeah, tag us in your pictures, include us in your hashtags. We want to see what you're baking just as much as you follow us.
Spread the Bundt love.
Spread the Bundt love. And the broclusivity.
And the proclusivity. And bake everything in your gluten net.
That's right.
Everything.
Right.
And spray your Bundt pans.
And
so much
spray
spray.
your Bundt pans.
Spray your Bundt pans.
Before this bake sale, we literally bought like 12 cans of the spray. I literally just off the shelf, put everything on the shelf into a bag.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for this amazing collaboration. You blew my mind with your incredible talent and your bunts, and now I'm so inspired. This book is already finished. I want to go back and write another 80s book just for these bunts alone.
We very much enjoyed making the buns, and we enjoy reading the books. Like, I love hearing the description of all the food, and hearing the buns that we made come up in the book. You know, it's a different kind of feeling. Hearing them talk about devil's food and pineapple upside down, you know, ding dongs.
But we also learned today that we're only going to eat beautifully baked ding dong bunts by Victoria, not.
That's right.
Yay.
Well, Ellie, definitely thank you for contacting us, about this. It definitely has been a lot of fun to kind of bounce ideas back and forth again for the theme and the different recipes and things. So it's been really enjoyable for us too.
Yay. Awesome.
Yeah, we've had a lot of fun working with you.
Yeah.
Same. All right. Happy baking all.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks. Take care.